This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
I was just calling, man. It's been a crazy day, or crazy last 24 hours.
Yeah, well, one way of looking at it.
Do you have any time to talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask you, first of all, I want to thank you so much for your insight. People really have been enjoying your insight into what's going on with the election and the personalities behind the election or the selection. I just want to get your thoughts about what happened yesterday with Donald Trump securing the victory as president of the United States of America so far.
It was a landslide. What happened was the American people just got tired of being misled by the media. See, since Hillary got chosen by them as representing their worldview, they have not been neutral in their reporting. They basically did a sleazy attack on Bernie Sanders, and in cahoots with the Democratic National Committee, destroyed the opportunity of the people to have Bernie Sanders as a candidate for president. It illustrates how the Democratic Party is out of touch with the people. The Republican Party outside of Trump is just as badly out of touch with the people. You got someone that the media had chosen as a poster child years ago that they pushed. You saw them badmouth Bernie Sanders trying to help her out, and they did some very bad attacks on Trump. Trump probably has said anything that most white officials haven't said in private. At least you know where he's coming from. And frankly, in my lifetime, the sleaziest, lowest clown that they've run and who has achieved the White House is Ronald Reagan. Most of our current financial woes in this country are attributable to administration. George W. Wacko Bush was just ridiculous, and Barack Obama was useless. I hate to say this, but in my lifetime, he's probably been the most ineffective president we've had. And he, along with Hillary Clinton and latterly Bill Clinton, got in the pockets of high finance and investment banking. And the people have no longer the protection of the Democratic Party to intervene between the ripoff, basically, that this group has been pulling off, such that a very small percentage of the country's population controls a huge amount of the country's wealth. So it is what it is. I don't think I'll get as bad a president as the media wants you to think. Have a sneaking impression you'll probably get a very effective one for a change, which is a change.
Well, I thought you said a businessman. But Judge, I thought you said a businessman would not make for a good president.
Well, businessmen usually don't make good politicians.
Mm-hmm.
They're always looking for the bottom line, and sometimes they forget the people element. The president is a different thing. If you want a historic parallel, take a look at LBJ. When he got the White House after John F. Kennedy got assassinated, everybody was moaning and carrying on about, oh, woe, all minorities, etc., etc. He's a racist. Well, he got up and said that. He said when he represented a small district in Texas, he had racists. When he became a congressman, he represented a bigger constituency, but he was still a racist. When he was a senator from Texas, he represented a lot more people. He's still a racist. He said, but now he's president of the United States, and he was going to surprise a lot of people, which he did. because he was going to represent all of the people. He withdrew the very weak civil rights bill that Kennedy had introduced and brought in a much stronger one and got it past the Southerners by making it a military bill. Most people don't even know that the preamble says, whereas the United States is engaged in a life or death struggle with the forces of communism and totalitarian regimes, and whereas the morale of the troops and military personnel are paramount in the ability of the armed forces of the country to defend the country, etc., whereas the base commanders cannot ensure equal and just treatment of these personnel nor the families thereof, be it resolved that this Civil Rights Act is necessary for the protection of the families of all of the servicemen. It reads something like that. It's a military bill. So we go, la-di-da, look what civil rights has got. It's had very little to do with it. Then when you got the amendments in 68, the Voting Rights Act, that had to do with people burning down the inner cities. It didn't have anything to do with marching and demonstrating. I actually wound up doing some research on it for a D.C. think tank back in 1972. But in any event, I think the media has done too much in the last few decades about turning news from entertaining information to an entertainment. And they have forgotten what they're supposed to be doing and what the First Amendment is about, and have used the media that they control to advance a personal and systemic agenda. Hitler said it, you tell a lie long enough and loud enough, you can get anybody to believe it. And they've been telling a series of lies very long and very loudly. I think basically they've been attempting to sissified the country. I'm not talking about homosexuality or anything like that. That's people's business and what they do behind closed doors. They've just been engaged in a campaign of sissification. People are supposed to be helpless. Boys aren't supposed to learn to fight. Boys are supposed to be protected from bullying. They've got the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Cyberbullying. Like, how in the hell can you bully somebody when it's just something you write? Don't listen to it. Don't read it. They want to suspend kids from school from running the dozens, something that we used to do for recreation. Had a lot of fun doing it. But these little delicate wimps they've got now, they can't handle it. 7-year-olds get in a fight, they want to call the police. And then there's so little man training going on that you got little sissies who want to pop a cap on somebody because they can't stand toe-to-toe and duke it out. It's a shame. But I have a sneaking suspicion that he will run the government, well, he'll run the executive office like a business. I never thought Hillary was much of a friend to black folk. People forget, and they have such short memories that they don't keep in mind what she used to say when she was a college student back in the 60s, advocating that black student union members, SNCC, CORE, Black Panthers, militant black folk trying to actualize our rights, we all ought to be put in jail or forced to leave the country. They don't remember that. They want to forget about all of the young guys out here in the neighborhood, out of control they may be, who are getting locked up with no alternatives because she was talking about the little predators that needed to be put away forever. And she has experience, but if you analyze it, it's not very impressive. And if you look at what she's done, just about everything she's done has been historically wrong. So get that out of the way, good riddance. The Democratic Party needs to reform, and like the Republican Party, needs to become more in touch with people. And if you looked at what happened in the actual result, you saw how far out of line all these polls were. And it leads you to wonder what else the media is telling you that the public accepts, embraces, and wants is not in line with what the public really wants either.
Yeah, wow. Now, it's interesting to
Go
say
ahead.
that. I would think about Donald Trump. Donald Trump used to be a Democrat, and he became a so-called
Yeah,
Republican, but he's not a conservative Republican. So it's interesting. He don't really have an ideology.
He's really an independent, like Bernie was. And see, cronyism, I heard it a lot from stalwart Democrats. He's an independent. We have to give it to Hillary because she's been a loyal Democrat for so long. Well, you know, what's that got to do with governance of people? Let's get excellence, not reward cronyism, you know?
Right.
He was an independent, and he actually gave the Clintons a lot of support. But I'm glad he gave the Republican Party its come up and said, they still haven't found out what happened either, because they're still tooting losers like Rubio and Cruz as potential winners in the future. And Pence as the vice presidential candidate, you know, like, he impresses me about nothing. So there's a thing that the people can, well, that's not the people, there's a saying about America. It says, with the system that we have, we get the representation we deserve. So we get fed a bill of goods on a regular basis. We want this, we want that, the people of this, the people of that. And then you get talking head morons like this Van Jones or whatever his name is you see on CNN that looks like Hillary was using for a coach for a while. Oh, he's so upset. What am I going to tell my children? Well, hell, why don't you explain why you were so bought off and so happy to go for Missy Hillary, you know? Look at it objectively, what's going to help us out. It's like what's going on for years and years is they want our votes on the national level. We don't get anything out of it. And on the local level, the people that wanted us for the national level go support the Republican Party. So it's kind of a game, and we need to get beyond it. And I don't think you're going to get I don't think your president is going to be bad. I know that Hillary was likely to have been a disaster. And quite frankly, I've come to the opinion that she had some severe anger management, and she has a propensity to attempt to appear tough and make bad decisions while doing that. So we need a level-headed person that can handle things, and she wasn't it. The public spoke to it. It was a landslide, and la-di-da. We've been sold another bill of goods. So it's time that black folk off their duffs and start saying we need to get our first black president. We need to get blacks in office who represent us and will push our agenda rather than simply getting our votes and being stooges for financial interests that have bought them off or who have engaged in weird sexuality, who have too many outside children that they're getting extorted over, and who done petty criminality and accepted too many bribes and under-the-table payoffs to be able to be independent and represent us. Now, I said we need our first black president because Barack Obama was not our first black president. We still don't have one. All you need to do is ask what mother, grandmother, father, grandfather, aunt, or uncle he has that's like American, and you answer the question. You done got none. He's a Kenyan and a Kansian whose white relatives fought for the Confederacy. So he has no black connection to this country. He grew up as a rich Indonesian kid, adopted by one of the 10 richest men on the planet Earth. And that man, Lolo Sotoro, left him a trust fund under Indonesian law, makes him a 1/3 equal beneficiary with his 2 half siblings that his mother had with Lolo Sotoro. So that makes him richer than Donald Trump. So we did not get a homeboy in there. And he was in there for 8 years, and when he had the House and the Senate, he did nothing to help us out. He put in somebody to offset Clarence Thomas, a righteous black man. No, he didn't. As a matter of fact, I live out here in Germantown, and I get stuff in the mail that says, please tell your U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander and the other one, etc., please to vote to confirm Barack Obama's nominee for the Supreme Court. He's been a lifetime Republican. He's against affirmative action, and he's pro-business. That's in the event Trump didn't win. But you see, we get sold a bill of goods. By the way, he worked for a law firm that represented Goldman Sachs. Hillary Clinton got not $13 million as she reported, but $26 million in a little less than a year and a half for speaking on behalf of Goldman Sachs, which is just outright bribery. Cruz's wife worked as an executive for Goldman Sachs. Hillary's daddy wound up working for Goldman Sachs. Barack and Michelle worked for a law firm that represented Goldman Sachs. The last 2 women that got confirmed to the Supreme Court had been consultants for Goldman Sachs. Obama appointed Geithner as Treasury Secretary, who had been chief consultant for Goldman Sachs. You know, his trust fund gets financing from Goldman Sachs. It's ridiculous. If there's a real Illuminati, there is. Their benefit is that they get to rip off the American public. They don't have to put their own money up. They can do it in cyberspace or on paper. And the U.S. government puts its money up or our money up when they screw up. So it's time to change the equation where just 3% of the American population owns and or controls 95% of the wealth in this country. Wow. And that's a shame. And you can't go to college. We've got 320 million people, and it's getting hard as the devil for a young person to afford to go to college. They're putting everything in his way. They're changing education around so it's practically useless, and you got to go get 4 years and 2 extra years to go to junior college and get an associate degree to get the equivalent of what a high school diploma used to stand for. I mean, look at the people from China. They don't have 320 million. They have 1,360,000,000. That's 1,040,000,000 more people than we do, and they make everybody go to school as far as they can go. Now, who's going to run the world in 25 years? Hint, if you're a young person, study Mandarin Chinese. That will be the principal language in the world in a short while. The Chinese stabilized the American Stock Exchange and Wall Street. They stabilized the American country. They've got 78% of the world's manufacturing capability. And we've let them get that because we started in the Reagan administration borrowing money from them so that the taxes could be reduced down to zero, basically, for big industry and the very wealthy. We're still paying for that. Obamacare is a disgrace if you're an old person. They are ripping us off so badly. My pension as a twice elected state judge fully vested, elected to 2 8-year terms, is only $40 a month more than what I have to pay as a copay for prescriptive medication. It's only $1,880 some a month. And that is a disgrace shame. Thank goodness I've got other sources. By the way, it looks like I will have a new show. That's a definite go now for fall 2017. It will be Judge Joe Brown's True Verdict. I had to put a plug in for myself.
Oh yeah,
and there'll be something else.
I know people want to figure out when you're going to be back on TV. I know a lot of people say, we want the judge back on TV, so you giving the people what they want. Like the people got what they wanted in Trump. I mean, I guess it's the people's time. The people's time to rise up.
Yeah.
But also, I want to just piggyback.
Look at all the people that supported Bernie Sanders. They kept talking about he's an old man. Why did they want it? The millennials, when they were younger, I talked to them a lot. When they were in high school, they would tell me, we need to be told what to do. Nobody's doing it. We know we don't know what we need to know.
Exactly.
We need some people to act like they are wise elders, to act like parents and grandparents, which we didn't have. You know, everybody telling us to do what we want to do. We know we don't know what to do. So Bernie Sanders was grandfather, and Donald Trump is the same. He's a senior person who has demonstrated success through his own efforts, not holding a political office with some con game, some shell game where he's been enriched because he holds the office rather than because of what he's done on his own. There's a difference.
That's proud what you said. I mean, you know what? I was just coming from, I saw a documentary screening of a civil rights activist from Mississippi, Dory Ladner. They did a documentary on her, and they screened it at Tougaloo. And it was amazing. The millennials, they were not aware of this person who came out their community. And the sad thing about it is the older folks were not aware. The so-called elders had no idea about the history. But yet we blame the millennials when they act out in protest, when they know something ain't right, but they don't know how to articulate it because they don't have the context of history. And I just want to bring up LBJ for a moment as well, too, which I found is fascinating. I saw the documentary Hillary's America, and it's interesting to note that the party that did the most to undermine black folks' liberation in this country has been the Democrats. Now, LBJ had the chance in 1956 to sign the Southern Manifesto. The Southern Manifesto, he had like 101 politicians in Congress and in the Senate and the House. They signed this manifesto, said they'll do everything they can to stop black folks from having equal rights in their system of Jim Crow white supremacy. Out of 101 people who signed that manifesto, 99 were Democrats, senators and congresspeople. The only senators of Democrat Party who did not sign that was Al Gore Sr., Al Gore Jr., father, LBJ, and Estes Kefauver, the other senator from Tennessee. They was the only senators not to sign that bill that was Democrat. Or that manifesto, excuse me.
And by the way, LBJ is responsible for many of the games that black folk enjoy today. Wasn't Kennedy. Nixon wasn't much for us.
Right.
Jerry
he started the
Ford
drug trade, helping drug war.
Yeah, Jerry Ford was a drunk, just holding the office. Jimmy Carter was a decent man, but he was too straightforward and didn't play the game. Ronald Reagan was a charlatan, a B-grade actor in lousy westerns. To give you an example of how ridiculous the situation was, they portrayed Ronald Reagan as a war hero, submarine commander. He played in a propaganda movie called Run Silent, Run Deep, where he was a captain of a submarine. Just an actor. It wasn't a very good movie. In actuality, Jimmy Carter graduated first in his class at the Naval Academy. That's Annapolis. He was commander of a number of nuclear submarines, a ballistic missile submarine, and wound up Commodore. That's basically an acting admiral in charge of the Northeast Atlantic Nuclear Ballistic Missile Submarine Force. So here is a real live sub commander. Nobody mentioned it, talked about him being a pacifist, and then characterized this acting fake Ronald Reagan as a real live war hero sub commander. All he did was have a safe little belay in the military propaganda office and did lousy movies trying to show why we fight. That's all he did. And he's responsible for borrowing trillions of dollars from the People's Republic of China, for putting all these homeless people out in the streets, ruining the American education system, ruining the hospital and medical care system, ruining the care for the those who had mental health needs, and generally screwing up a whole lot. And then you talk about racism. I can remember now, he got, my friends, people are talking about these poor black children on welfare and they don't have vegetables. Well, I understand they have ketchup with every meal. Isn't that a vegetable product? You know, and then him and his little clown Karl Rove, and what's his name, that charlatan. They were talking about pollution as a gimmick. It's really nothing but cows farting that are causing the pollution. You know, like, come on, man. You know, it was pathetic. And what's so bad about it is the economy was on a roll under Jimmy Carter. Within 14 months of Reagan getting in, everything tanked out. People were going broke, living with their brother-in-laws in a double-wide trailer, losing their cars, mortgages, savings accounts. And they loved him because he knew what was wrong with America. And he was playing the race card, and every other word he said, it had something to do with it being black people's fault. And then you got George Herbert Walker Bush. At least he does have the distinction of being the youngest combat pilot in World War II for the Americans. Got his butt shot down. There was a place called Iwo Jima, not Iwo Jima. Okay. And he barely made it to a small rock. If he had missed it by 10 yards, this is after he got shot down in a TVF Avenger torpedo plane. He would have been washed onto this island, and the crazy commandant liked to kill American prisoners, have sake parties, and barbecue their livers. He killed all the prisoners he had. If it had been 10 feet away, we wouldn't have had to put up with him. And then you got ClINton, who was all right, necessary at the time, but in the last year or so of his first term, he got in pocket with Goldman Sachs, and he sold out the ordinary people by being behind high finance rather than protecting the people from high finance. And poor little drunk boy, daddy drunk, born in a trailer park, he becomes a rich man, which seems to be par for the course for every president but Jimmy Carter, who gives back a lot in service. There you go. We got sold out. Now, granted, he was a necessary change from Reagan Bush, but after him, we got election cheating down there in Florida when they counted every vote. Right. Gore got 62+% of the popular vote in Florida. He should have gotten the Electoral College and been elected president instead of that clown George Wacko Bush, who was a drunk and a drug addict. He was in the Air Force National Guard, and he was AWOL for 9 months because at the time they had too many problems with flight crews using drugs. So they made everybody take a weekly P test, and he couldn't pass it, so he was AWOL for 9 months. So what did they say? Well, he reformed at 41, so everything up to that, his drug abuse and alcoholism, was just youthful indiscretion. 40 years old, yeah. And all of the girls he got preggo that daddy bailed him out of, the problems out of, his drunkenness and his ill repute and his sleaze, that got us into a shooting war with this lie about weapons of mass destruction, which Hillary went along with. Bad. Very bad. Now, we've got a couple of people out there that, for future reference, might make very good presidents.
Okay.
And we need to pay very careful attention to them. Let's see. I'll give you the names right off. Let me see, I'm thinking. Okay. You've got General Wesley Clark on the Democratic side, and you've got General Colin Powell on the Republican side. Now, if we got Colin Powell, we'd get our first true black American. Now, again, I don't know what we're going to do with Bernie Sanders. I still like the man.
But time was not on his side, you trying to say.
Yeah, he's 74 years old. Now,
Right.
Trump is 70. Trump has another distinction. When he's sworn in, he will be the oldest president in American history at the time of swearing in. Hillary would have been the second oldest behind Ronald Reagan.
Ain't that something?
Interesting.
And she through now. She this her last.
Oh, I hope she is through. Get her the hell out of the way so we don't have to be bothered with that. I've been on before, and I said it's like this. Whatever you say, Trump is like he's sitting there scowling at the dinner table with a bottle of poison in his hand that he can see. And he said, if you crap out, I'm going to put it on your plate. Hillary had a bottle of poison in her purse, grinning at everybody. And you don't know what she's going to do. And frankly, I thought, and I said this to you, it was the height of arrogant stupidity to openly campaign for gun control when that issue has caused the Democratic Party to literally shoot itself in the foot on so many occasions. People keep talking around the issue, but so many of the uncollege educated white women, they did not like the idea of being deprived of the right to protect themselves while their husbands were gone to work. See, they engage in marriage a lot, and hubby's not there. Or maybe they're single parents and nobody's there. So they wanted to be able to be armed. And for ClINton to run around just openly trying to take that or threaten that is just a no-no. You don't trust her to begin with. So she has nothing to recommend herself to anybody other than the fact that she's a woman. And la-di-da, she's for gun control. Oh, hell no. Thumbs down. And see, there's another thing that I heard a lot from women that would tell you in confidence, said, I'm a woman, and I hate the idea of working for a woman boss. Well, no, you said it, not me. And a lot of that came out in the voting booths.
You know, it's interesting, Judge, how white folks, they real sneaky nature. They don't really tell you who they're going to vote for or how they vote. I don't have no problem telling people who I voted for or how I vote, but white folks tend to be sneaky like that, and I believe that caused confusion in the exit polls because they said it's a silent majority.
Yeah, but you see, here's the other thing about these exit polls. Just think about it. Why the hell, if you're supposed to be governing, Are you sticking your damn finger up in the air to see which way the wind's blowing instead of giving good government?
That's true.
And then the other damn thing is everybody's got to know, and they speculate, and get these ignorant talking heads that you saw so many of them were just stunned when the results started coming in, and they start changing the story. How did we go so wrong? Because you didn't get yourself in touch with people. You live in an isolated little vacuum. And your values are not those of the general public. And you keep pushing this crap, inquiring minds type tabloid crap, where everybody's got to know. Be patient and you will find out. The election was on the 8th. On the 9th, you'll know. You don't have to know 6 months before who's going to win.
That's right.
So everybody's got to be impatient and know. You see, that's where you go. And that's the way that we go wrong a lot these days.
Yes, sir.
So it's kind of sort of like, and back to us, you know, it's hard for black folk, particularly black men, real black men, to get their foot in the door. And then when you get your foot in the door, you got to really kick some behind. First world, black world heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson. They hated him so bad they had to come up with a law, the Mann Act, to get rid of him. That's how the FBI came into being, to get rid of Jack Johnson, not to fight crime. Then you have excellent Joe Louis. Then you got Muhammad Ali. And then, okay, let's get football. The longest pass ever thrown in organized football was one they credited for 101 yards in the air, not the total play. The pass was from 1 yard deep in the end zone to the opposite end zone by Kenny Washington, who was the first brother to play in the NFL. The Rams hired him. The first brother to play in the NBA, incidentally, was the wide receiver, Don Barksdale, who caught Kenny Washington's pass. The person who was blocking for Kenny Washington when he threw the pass was Jackie Robinson, who was the first brother to play Major League Baseball for the Dodgers. Don Barksdale played for the Lakers. And guess what? We don't even cover this. Guess who owns the Dodgers, the first team to hire a brother? Magic Johnson. Guess who owns the new L.A. Rams, the first team to hire a brother? Magic Johnson. Guess who is the primary owner of the Lakers, first team to hire a brother? Magic Johnson. We don't even talk about that. And then you have these other precedents. You got Mayor Tom Bradley, first brother to be mayor of a city like that. He had to try real hard. They wouldn't even let him join LAPD until he was a practicing lawyer. But he ran the 400 meters and won it in the Olympics. And guess where he went to school? Same school Jackie Robinson, Don Barksdale, Kenny Washington went to school.
Yes, sir.
The first black man to hold a high office in the United Nations, Ralph Bunche. The biggest building on the campus is named after him. He went to the same school. The first brother to be an admiral in the U.S. Navy went to the same school. You see, when you get your foot in the door, kick behind and take names so you can follow up and do it more later. We got such a brother right now, and I don't hear anybody in the media talking about him that's black. His name is Lewis Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
In our entire 84 history of Formula One Grand Prix racing, he's the first black man in it. And the brother is fantastic. He's the current world champion. He's fighting it out with his teammate right now to see who's going to be the next world champion. He drives for Mercedes-Benz that was subsidized before World War II by Adolf Hitler. He drives a $28 million racing car.
Wow.
And he right now is in second place for the total number of races won as a driver in 84 years history of the sport. He has now in second place for having more pole positions than anybody else in 84 years, and he's only 32.
Wow, it's incredible.
But we don't even talk about the brother. And most women would think he's hot. He's a good-looking young brother, articulate.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the world is holding this guy up as Superman.
Wow.
But we don't even know who he is. And he also, by the way, just happens to be the highest paid athlete in the world. See, first brother in the door, he don't take no slack from anybody, but we don't give him any of his promise.
Wow.
He won the U.S. Look, the U.S. Grand Prix was held down in Texas last month. He won this race 5 out of the last 6 times they ran it.
Wow.
You hear us give him any slack. This is a white guy that we always hold up in our minds as race driver. Not the baddest dude in a race car being a black man. Pele, world's greatest soccer player. Very few in America know who he was or is. You see, we have so little understanding. But the thing I'm putting the brother up for is he's the first in the field and he kicks behind and takes names. You see, we got what looked to be a black man in there as president, and since Franklin Delano Roosevelt has been in there, this fool is probably the weakest and most ineffective president that's been in that office since Hoover was in there before FDR.
You know what's interesting?
8 years. And who did he appoint to lifetime positions?
Not a black woman.
What did he change about laws to put folks back to work? What did he do when everybody knew he was going to lean over backwards to help black folks? He didn't do a damn thing. You see. So we've got a series of weak representatives of our race in places where they don't do anything. Look at this mess in Memphis. I'm not being a racist, but the registered voters, white vote, out of all the registered voters in Memphis, only 19.1% are white. And then look at the faces of the elective office holders in Memphis. Only 24.8% of the registered voters in Shelby County are white. And look what little we hold in the way of offices in Shelby County. We've never had the sheriff's office. We've never had the DA's office. We don't have the mayor's office anymore. Look in the city. We don't have a mayor's office anymore. We don't even have a city court clerk's office, for God's sake, anymore. Look, we ought to be deeply ashamed. The city council gave away the Board of Education to the county, and now 24% of the student body is represented by 6 voting members of that board, and for the 70-some%, we're only gonna have 2 people on there to vote in a few more months.
Wow.
And they let that situation get set up. You see, yeah, it's a shame.
Who represents the 9th district now? Who represents the 9th district?
Steve Cohen. And if you examine Steve Cohen's voting record in Congress, it's Turley Belts, Smith, Smith, Turley Belts, Smith, Turley Belts. There's nothing in there for black middle-class people, nothing in there, for that matter, for white middle-class people. It's gay, gay, gay. They have their rights, but what about the majority of the people in this town that are middle class that get nothing out of that?
That's right.
Now, I'm not bad-mouthing gay folk. They have a right to do whatever the hell they want to do.
But you have to say this, Judge, about the gay people. They got the most out of Obama, and they're going to be protected by Trump.
Yeah, they did.
They're going to be protected. They ain't lose nothing this election. They ain't lose a damn thing.
Not a thing. And Hillary was one of them.
Right. Know what I'm saying? They're going to get protected anyway.
Her business.
Right. See, I mean, you know what's interesting, Judge? The LGBTQ community, they get the protection that black folks should get. We don't have the same protection like the LGBTQ folks. But we should, based on the historical record. We should.
Cross party lines.
Sir?
They cross the party lines and they're well organized. They have their political stuff together. We don't.
Yes, sir. You know what? I noticed this too. I was looking at a figure. They said we got like 35,000 black millionaires or better, but we have no big time black think tanks or lobbyists on the Hill. We don't. Israel got that. They got lobbyists. They got AIPAC. You even got the ALLC people. Everybody got lobbyists and think tanks except for black people. I mean, big influential think tanks and lobbyists.
We don't have any of that. And see, we've got this thing where, have you seen a black man do anything recently? It's all about black women. The Million Man March.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
20th anniversary. Did you see black men in that thing? No, a bunch of sisters up there trying to take over the thing.
They've been doing that for a while. Yep. Yes, sir.
That's what's wrong with the inner city. There's no black manhood. These boys don't have fathers to train them. They don't have uncles to teach them. They don't have grandfathers to teach them. And if they do have one around, the man's getting beat down by some feminist conspiracy going on.
Right.
You know, and the boys don't have masculine models anymore. You know, you go to the movies and they got an action adventure thing and the action heroes are kissing each other.
That's right.
7-year-old, 8-year-old boys get in a fight and they got to call the police department.
Super predators. Like Hillary said, they super predators.
Yeah.
They scary. Black kids are scary.
You know what I've been telling you about that thing with Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump for a long time? I said they're trying to jack Bernie around so they can engineer a rating circus in the last part of this election cycle. They want Trump and they want Hillary because they're going to make a lot of money.
That's right.
And that's exactly what they did. They manipulated stuff. The Democratic National Committee manipulated the process. That's what was coming out with what that stuff the Russians hacked. And they decided, forget what the people want. We want Hillary. And they got her. And she got her butt whipped. And you know the thing that got me, well, look how he disrespected women. I said, look, this is Boys and Girls 101A. Women talk worse about men when they're sitting around in chairs at a beauty salon.
That's right.
And any man that says he has not engaged in such conversation at a bar with his cronies or in a locker room is lying through his teeth.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You know, I mean, I've done it myself. Haven't you? Yes. Everybody has. You know, it's like, and then I had a former mother-in-law who owned a beauty salon for years. I'd have to go by there to run errands for her, and I'd have to go, you know, cover my ears to keep from listening to how bad the sisters were talking about me and sitting up in the chairs.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Wow. I'm gonna ask you this as well too. Speaking of black women, I know I was going backwards and forwards on different channels covering the election results, and I just so happened upon BET and also TV1, which is owned by Kathy Hughes, a black woman, and they had Roland Martin, I guess, in this place called Mulebone on U Street in DC. They having that election watch party, and it's like he was interviewing nothing but black women. How they say it was sad and angry, and even the people on the panel discussion was the majority black women. And they had one brother up there like he was afraid to say anything. He was looking all afraid. But like, yeah, it was like a lot of these sisters just talking, and they are all pro Hillary, and it was the end of the world if she didn't win. And I don't understand what is the sway, because even with Barack Obama, he want to sound like Adam Clayton Powell Jr., but he'll never get the stuff done that Representative and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell did for our people. He got the job done.
And wait a minute, that was 50-some years ago.
Exactly. But he don't come close to that, though. But he want to sound like a reverend. Hmm?
Yeah, he got coached by Reverend White on how to sound that way. People that knew him from back when say he didn't sound that way at first.
Right.
And then he wanted to badmouth Reverend White gratuitously.
Yeah,
you know,
he did. But Reverend Wright said he'll be back. He'll be back after he finishes his 2 terms. And Dustin then discussed he'll be back. The talk. I think Barack Obama was going to be sad is that he might do some Jimmy Carter stuff. No disrespect to Jimmy Carter, but he might come back to Chicago and try to solve the gang situation and all this other stuff. But he could have did that as president. He could have visited Chicago as president.
The only thing he did out in Chicago was they had a Homestead Act in Chicago. They had all of this urban blight. They had this thing where if you went and fixed up the business, they would give you title to the property, the city would. Mm-hmm. So a lot of black folk did that. So the firm Obama was working for, Michelle too, they represented a white development company, and they wanted to get the title. So they put him out there in the black neighborhoods, going around convincing these black folk they should sell their property to the white developers that the firm Barack and Michelle worked for wanted to buy. See, it's just a fake game. Fake game. See, you can't be half-stepping when you get out there with them young brothers. They'll challenge you. If you survive the challenge, okay. You get out there and you get the half-stepping and do that goody two-shoes mess, they will kick that butt. Mm-hmm. And see, bottom line is you got to know how to handle yourself that way too.
This is true. This is true. What do you say to the black folks? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, what would you say to the young black people who kind of disillusioned, that they feeling like a lot of black folks are sad today because Hillary lost for whatever reason? What would you say to the black people?
Because she lost? Don't you have enough women running and ruining your lives as it is right now? You know, mama ain't doing you right if your daddy ain't around, and half the time he's around, she's trying to undercut him. She's talking about all men are dogs, so what's that make her for sleeping with all these dogs? You know, we would not have had slavery had it not been for the complicity of the black woman. Black man has his problems with having put up with it, but the black woman has a deeper burden from having condoned it and helped it. See, I'd studied, when I was with that think tank 43 years ago in D.C., We studied these slave pamphlets on microfilm in the Library of Congress. The secret to raising slaves for fun and profit was you have to enlist a black woman to enslave her children for you. That was the secret.
Mm.
And put the preacher in the loop, so between the black church and religion and the black woman, your slaves would be ready-made for you. So, see, we need black men to step up and be men and run their neighborhoods to make them peaceful, prosperous, with some sense of purpose. Now, I'm not getting on women, but I mean, for goodness sakes, one of the big problems in this country, white, black, brown, red, yellow, is these children are not getting proper parenting. And I don't think it's good for the human race or for America or for the immediate neighborhood to de-emphasize motherhood. So, I mean, motherhood, the way I look at it on the media, except when it comes to getting something on Mother's Day, is debased and degraded. Like, you know, why would a woman just want to be a mother? Because it's the right thing to do? No. You got to have everything else, but not being a mother. That's like low on your priorities, you know. So somebody needs to emphasize motherhood again, because it's lacking out there. And we need some fathers. But you see, one big problem is you can be the best father in the world, but your problem is that because human children are hardwired to be most receptive to mama, until they get about 8 years old, daddy is just like a pet around the house, even at the best of circumstances. And if the mother is sitting there undercutting manhood, it's not good for the young guy. You know, he's not going someplace. His head is messed up. Now, sometimes women get put in a position where they got to do what they got to do because they're a single parent. I would suggest they stop doing it over and over again. An accident's an accident, but you got 9 or 10 with 7 different baby daddies, something's wrong. And see, these young brothers are not getting raised properly. Young girls aren't either, for that matter, black and white ones.
Yeah, I noticed something too. I meet women and stuff. It's like as I get older, you know, the likelihood that I run into a woman that I like, she's gonna have kids. But I noticed talking to some of these women, that some of these women, they around my age in their 30s or late 30s, whatever. They got kids, but none of their kids live with them. They got several different daddies, but none of their kids live with them. What do you think about a woman like that? What's going on here?
She didn't get raised right.
Okay.
She didn't get raised right. She's not raising her children right. See, motherhood is very important, but in the scheme of things in this country, it's got very low priority. It's like, I want to be a mother, but you don't want to act like one. And then you got the other effect just about as bad as all these dudes running around with 10, 12, 14, 15, 25 outside kids and don't take care of any of them. And quiet is kept when somebody's got a whole bunch of babies, outside kids. He's not secure in his manhood. He's trying to prove through fecundity that I'm a man because I got all these kids. He may have some issues, you know, come out the closet, you know, it's 21st century.
Right.
Because real men take care of their stuff.
Well, okay, if he have a lot of kids, if he take care of his kids, you know, is that different?
Well, if he takes care of them, you know, all right. But that, by the way, is one of the problems with too many local black elected and appointed officials. They've got too many outside kids, and they're getting blackmailed by this charlatan operation down here known as Memphis and Shelby County Juvenile Court. See, they've been using that for the last 58 since 1963 to run the political scene around here by blackmailing all these folk couldn't keep it in their pants or couldn't hold off or wear a raincoat and got all these babies.
Right.
You go down there and you look at a local politician supposed to be big time, and he's got 14, 18, 19, 10, 7 different outside babies down there. He's a fool. And he's not doing you any good because they blackmail him through juvenile court and control him. And that's the other thing. It is a disgrace and a shame that this city, majority black city, majority black county, lets that travesty run down there.
Wow.
It's an institution that's being used to hold the black community down, ruin black families, and particularly ruin black men.
Wow. So what do you say to a city that's overwhelmingly black, but it's not got a white daddy complex? They got to have white men take care of them. We so obsessed with Bob Crump still. It's the Bob Crump legacy. How do we break that legacy? Generational curses.
Get some men. Get some men.
Okay.
And see, even if we look at some of the old ones, we had some real righteous brothers around here at one time. But even some of them that are held up for respect, they didn't deserve it. They were pedophiles. They had too many obscure liaisons, and they took too much under the table, and they were half-stepping and sneaking and creeping.
Wow.
Bad. So, and Boss Crump is one of our big problems. Actually, Boss Crump came to Memphis because a guy named Church wanted his only surviving son, Robert Church Jr., to be able to keep all the property that he gave him. Robert Church, first black millionaire, had a father that was the richest man in Mississippi. But the white folk kept taking his stuff. So Robert Church's daddy sent Crump up here to make sure that son did not lose anything. Robert Church was this man's son through a slave mistress. All the rest of his legitimate kids had gotten killed in the Civil War, or sons. So Robert Church is the reason we had Boss Crump. He came up here to take care of his interest. And to do that, he ensured that black folk kept the right to vote. See, Boss Crump never had a large white, he never had a white majority. He had a white minority of voters supporting him, but a black bloc vote that enabled him to control politics. So he made sure that blacks never lost the right to vote in Tennessee like they did in all of the former Confederate states, but Tennessee. So we got all happy with the black brokers who delivered our vote, and it was no big thing to vote. And we used to get a shiny quarter and a piece of watermelon and a shot of whiskey. Now they get nothing. And we've been used to too many people of our race with power who just brokered us and pocketed large amount of money and advantage. So it doesn't mean much to us because we never have been without it. What is it? You don't miss your water till your well runs dry.
Yeah.
You know, that's the saying. So we never had a situation where our well ran dry.
Well, maybe this might be the time. The fulfillment of prophecy.
You know what? I have a sneaking suspicion. Trump's not going to be that bad a president. I think he's going to shake some people up. And
see, my concern Go ahead, Judge.
I think he's not going to be that bad. what I'm listening to sounds suspiciously like what I heard back in 1964 when Kennedy had been assassinated and everybody was all crying about, oh my God, this old racist Southerner LBJ is not a president. What's going to happen to us? You know.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because like a Southerner, Little B. Johnson understood the Southerner better than most people. He was a Southern white male. And you got a person whose father was an alleged Klansman and whose grandfather was a pimp and a tax cheat who is now president. First generation American. You know, and he probably he has a better, Trump really do understand white folks very well, even the working class ones. He understands white folks' psyche very well. Yep. He is a businessman. And I think he's not beholden to anybody's ideology. I think the media was really Trump's sponsor and advocate because he had to worry about paying that much money to advertise because they gave him free advertising. So he's endorsed by the system, and I'm surprised they let him make it this far. Cause I think about George Wallace, I think about Huey Long, and them guys were assassinated, but he's still around. So hopefully they let him finish the first term.
Yep. You know what? We have a bad habit as a people of depending on great white daddy in the White House for what we get.
Right.
We aren't the only ones. Hell, American Indians did that too. Native Americans.
Look what's going on in the Dakotas, right? Look what's going on in South Dakota right now. Yeah. It was the first Democratic president, Andrew Jackson, who created the Trail of Tears. Now you got the first so-called black president who's a Democrat that's letting what's going on at Standing Rock take place without any type of intervention. With that pipeline on Native American land. So it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, I lost a great-great-grandmother, a great-great-grandfather, and a great-great-great-grandmother to that fool. And they've got a statue of him down there in front of the courthouse. On that damn Trail of Tears. He is a low-down homicide. He was a low-down homicidal scoundrel. But he's honored.
That's right.
So I don't like it. And, you know, my Choctaw background says that somebody ought to have their scalp on the TP Lodge pole. But, you know, you can't do that these days.
That's right.
Now, I don't dislike white people. I just dislike people who act the wrong way to other people. Now, that so many of them have a certain description is unfortunate. But there are black folk who are just as bad. And Thurgood Marshall, when he retired, he gave a press interview. And he noted, probably with Clarence Thomas in mind, he said, a black snake will bite you just as quick as a white one.
That's right.
So, you know, it is what it is. We just made some poor choices. We should have been bemoaning the fact that Bernie Sanders did not get in. And I'm wondering right now why it is that all these sisters were so firmly behind Hillary Clinton. You know, everybody else seemed to could see what was good about Bernie Sanders except our sisters. And they wanted Hillary so bad. They got her, and if she was a disaster.
Mm-hmm. So no.
So maybe we need to become better at recognizing who our friends are.
That's right.
There's a term, a phrase they used to use back in the 60s. Instead of going for the lesser of two evils, it is sometimes better to heighten the contradiction.
That's right. Mm.
See what you really got. I think Trump is really representative of white America.
He is.
I think that as a businessman with the thought perhaps in mind of looking at the country as a business entity, he will do like any other good businessman, and that is he will run it in a fashion that maximizes its return on itself. And that means you don't waste your resources. So if you're black, white, brown, red, or yellow, if you're a resource, you get used.
That's right.
So it's, hey, wake up, America. It did. Black folk, wake up. It ain't over.
Mm.
You know, and it's interesting that Barack Obama goes out of office with a slightly higher approval rating than Ronald Reagan did.
Right.
He came up, and this is with white folk. I'd give him a very bad report card for being totally ineffective, inefficient, and effectively useless, but that's me.
Yes,
But
sir.
the country seems to be giving him a good report card. He's got a higher report card than Bill Clinton did when he left office, a much higher report card than either the Bushes had, and slightly higher than Reagan. But he didn't do any good for Hiller boat. And I call her the boat because she's like a sailboat. She only goes where the wind blows. And we have too many of those, and we don't need to ally ourselves with any more of them.
Mm-hmm.
The writing is on the wall.
Yes, sir. I also want to ask you, you ever had a chance to, when you was in Nashville, there's a Nathan Bedford Forrest statue on I-65. You can see it from I-65 outside of Nashville. You ever seen that statue?
I've heard it alluded to. It hasn't caught my attention.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I saw it the other day. I
that
took
needs
pictures
to-
of it. It's like a cartoon. It's like a
I
ghoulish
tell you what.
cartoon.
I tell you what they need to do. They need to dig his bones up and take this statue that they've got of him here and take it up to Nashville.
Him and his
And
wife.
you know what is so ridiculous?
Mm.
You know where that damn thing is located?
Yes, sir.
It's in Nat Turner Park.
Mm.
So Nat Turner is supposed to be a slave that led a rebellion that unfortunately was not successful. I suspect, in fact, I'm sure it wasn't quite as little nice, nasty as it was portrayed in The Birth of a Nation, the most recent edition.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they got the biggest slave trader in the American South before the Civil War,
And a proud Democrat.
presiding over Nat Turner Park, is just so unambiguously insulting. Like, yeah, boy, you think you got out of line, but your spirit up in here, we got Nathan Bedford Forrest, hostess with the mostest, making sure your black butt don't get out of line.
So Judge Brown, you saying that park was really called Nat Turner Park? That's the official name?
Yeah, Nat Turner.
I didn't
That's
know
what
that.
the
Why did it say it's Health and Sciences or Forest Park then all these years?
Yeah, well, they changed the name, but they didn't remove the statue.
Wow. I know they changed the health and sciences, but you said it was Nat Turner at one point, right?
Yeah, they call it Nat Turner Park. That's what everybody's calling it now. But
Oh, that's what they call it
Nat
now.
Turner
They call it
Park.
Nat Turner Park. Okay.
Yeah,
That's the
but
unofficial
I'm gonna
name,
be
right?
unofficial. But I'm gonna be Nat Turner Park with Nathan Bedford Forrest presiding over.
This is true. But you know what's interesting, though? I went down to Southampton, Virginia a couple weeks ago where Nat Turner's from. He had his insurrection. There is no memorial or anything to Nat Turner, but they do have two streets down there. One called Hanging Tree Road and the other one called Blackhead Signpost Road. Now they got their names because Hanging Tree was where they used to hang black folks at on that street, on trees. And then Blackhead Signpost Road, it was because a slave after the insurrection of Nat Turner named Alfred had his head cut off and put on a stick. But back in 1990, you had black and white people on a committee officially named those streets those names. And you got black children that live on those streets. So I interviewed the postmaster general down there. He protested the naming of the streets. He's a native of Southampton. But, you know, he got children asking what the meaning of those names are to black people. And black folks got to explain that, but there is no memorial, no monument to Nat Turner. But what's interesting is the county clerk down in Southampton named Ricky Francis. He's a white man whose ancestor was Nathaniel Francis, a well-known prominent slave trader. He lost 17 members to Nat Turner's rebellion, 17 white members of his family. But he said to him that Nat Turner was like a hero because he would do what any white man would have done in that situation. He's on the level of George Washington, but when you go down there, they can't speak his name. He's still taboo.
You know, that's our condition.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'd rather go see Boo. By the way, is that Amos or is that Andy in drag?
That's a good question. But even Amos and Andy wasn't as bad as some of the stuff they got out today.
Nah, yeah, but I'm saying Amos and Andy were two different people. Which one of it does it? Which one of them is it that's in drag and that Medea nonsense?
I have no idea. But you know what's funny? Black folks love to see that. As like you said, it's about the bread and circuses. Nothing but the Roman Empire, the last of the Roman Empire.
Well, pane et circenses.
Mm-hmm.
Feed them bread and give them bread and circuses.
Mm-hmm.
Dona pane et circenses. Give them bread and circuses, and the fools won't care what you do to them. Feed them and entertain them. You go down there to the Paradiso, and they've got 4 different theaters devoted to that nonsense.
Wow.
And we go just flock to it. We don't, it's like, it's glorification of dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
What is our purpose?
Mm.
Yeah, man.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and let's wrap it up. You have any thoughts for this segment to close out the segment? Do you want to share?
Hey, the only thing I'd offer this time around is the only person you can depend on is yourself and those who are your allies and close to you. We need to stop waiting for somebody or something to do it for us.
Yes, sir.
That's just my quotable Brown for the day.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. We need those brownie supplements, some vitamin supplements to get us through the day. I know a lot of people thoroughly enjoy what you got to say, and they look forward to your return on TV. Because I get that all the time from people. They just can't wait for you to come back on TV because they think you just a walking encyclopedia of knowledge and wisdom. So they really appreciate that.
Well, thanks. But, you know, we got to do what we got to do. But, I mean, hey, it is what it is. And
Yes,
it was, you know, it should have been expected.
Yeah.
But one other thought, just I want to emphasize this. Just keep in mind how far out of line these pundits were with reality, and think about what else we hold as true in our mind that's just as badly detached from the reality of the situation.
That's deep. I think people going. That's why, like what we're doing right now, the social media and stuff is so dangerous to the establishment. Because people are getting better informed. There's more things out there. They can't hide it for him. Just like with Clinton, I think a lot what happened with Hillary Clinton not winning is not only how people may feel about Hillary, but also the information that's available about the Clinton history and public policy and also other things. He got all this stuff on the internet, these documentaries, these books, these reports, there's different things out there to inform the public about Hillary Clinton and her true legacy. Because I was telling people that Hillary Clinton was not running against Donald Trump. She was running against her own legacy, her and her husband's legacy. So it wasn't Donald Trump, it was her legacy. She was running against herself.
By the way, I got an awful lot of text messages last night from black men, good black men, all over the country who were excited that she was getting her butt whipped.
A lot of black women were sad, though, which is interesting.
I'm not sad.
I'm not either. I was looking at what was going on. Like you said, there's so many black women they were talking to, and hardly any black man would say anything, or they were afraid to say anything. That was negative.
You get like that Van Jones that, like I said, he acted like he was Kotex or Tampon or something.
It's like you said. I was thinking about with Terrell Owens when he played on the Cowboys, where he was crying about Tony Romo in the press conference.
Yeah,
about some years ago. But how about the Cowboys now? But thank you, Judge, so much for everything. And the words of Great Cousin, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
All right, brother. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Yes, sir.